Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we're discussing How to Have Sex, currently in theaters and streaming on Mubi in select countries. The movie follows three British teenage girls who go on a rites-of-passage holiday, drinking, clubbing, and everything else in what should have been the summer of their lives. The movie is directed by Molly Manning Walker, whose short Good Thanks You is currently streaming on Mubi Canada. Feel free to use my link in the description box down below to get a free 30-day subscription to Mubi Canada. The movie is taken from an experience Molly had when she was partying with her friends on one of these trips abroad. This is a very impressive debut that not only explores consent, but challenges our perceptions of victimhood. Sky, Tara, and Emma are three best friends who go on what was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. Everything changes when Tara is assaulted. The movie does a great job of getting us inside Tara's head while she tries to process what is happening to her, while at the same time trying to maintain this calm and fun demeanor. I like the atmosphere of the film. Like whenever you do go out drinking and partying, like there is always a sense of danger, like anything could happen, both good and very bad. In terms of setting, we spend most of the time either at the hotel or at the bar, and it does feel like the wild, wild west. Like people are just kind of popping in and out of bars to get wasted. The longer they're on holiday, the more exhausting it looks. Like it just felt like an endurance competition. Like they were forcing themselves to drink to oblivion, even though they clearly reached just their breaking point. And it was also really hard to tell if they were actually having fun or if they were just kind of grinning and just like smiling through the pain. This is the type of movie you show teenagers, and I think this movie, along with the series I May Destroy You, would make great companion pieces. I felt this movie was very real. I could relate to all the characters. Like I know people like this. I feel like I've been in situations like this. It just felt too relatable in the worst ways possible. So the movie starts and everybody is ready to have a great time. Like they are so excited about everything, the pool, the hotel, the cold water. Like nothing is gonna get their spirits down. And again, the promise of a holiday is always so much better than the actual holiday itself. And they have such high expectations. And sadly, these expectations are not met. At first, these girls all seem like soulmates, like they seem like they're meant to be. But however, as the movie goes on, it's very clear that they will not be friends forever. When you're traveling abroad to party, or just when you're out partying, especially if you plan on getting wasted, like the company you keep is so important because they can either protect you from predatory behavior or they can encourage predatory behavior around you. In terms of characters, we have three main characters. We have M, Tara or Taz, and Sky, which is the literal devil. And I have not been triggered by a character in a while than I have Sky. Like we all know somebody like this friend who's always like quote unquote joking, that says the nastiest, the meanest things and then excuses themselves by saying they're just kidding. And she seems very jealous of her friend because, I don't know, she's charismatic. She's like, I have to say, like Tara can really take a joke. Like if Sky said half the things she said to Tara to me, that would be a homicide investigation. Like she would be, that could never be me. Sky is the type of friend that brings you along to compete with you. She constantly puts her friend in revealing clothes, volunteers her for degrading activities just so she can laugh at her, humiliate her. What's worse is that she discourages her from pursuing what really at first felt like her soulmate. And Sky is the type of person who has a very strong voice, but she will never use that voice to defend you or help you speak up for yourself, right? She uses that voice to amplify your insecurities and tell everyone all your secrets. So as the movie goes on, it's clear that the main character is Tara. And we don't really know much about these girls outside of this holiday, but my first impression of Tara is that she can talk her way into anything. She seems very charismatic, life of the party, like really just, she seems like a very easygoing and trusting person, which is sadly used against her. Everything changes when they meet their doppelgangers, this other group of three that's also on vacation. And when Tara first makes contact with this group, I had the worst feeling ever. And that's the thing, like you know that something bad is about to happen, you just don't know when it's gonna happen or how it's gonna happen. So one day Tara is on the balcony and she starts chatting to a guy named Badger, and my first impression of him was like, if there's anybody that I thought would be an assailant, it would be him. But turns out he's like the sweetest, nicest guy ever. And they have kind of a love at first sight attraction. Like they were vibing right away. And had things gone in this direction, she would have had the greatest summer of her life. Instead, as I said, beware the company you keep. Her friend Sky actively discourages her from pursuing him and then goes ahead and tries to seduce and pursue him herself. And it's not that she likes this guy, it's that she likes the competition, she likes the chase, like she does it for her own ego. This other group of friends, like there's 3 of them, and 2 of them are chill, except for 1. So Badger is chill. There's this one girl that never says anything, but she seems okay. And then you have this guy named Patty, who is the assailant. And so Patty is basically like the male Sky. And at first, Patty seems very innocent. He comes off very chill, like very just, I don't know, like there was just nothing obviously creepy about him. But as the movie goes on, you realize he's quite the snake. And like Sky, he discourages his friend. He basically tries to swoop in on his friend and pursue Tara. And he doesn't actually like her. It's more the ego and the more the chase. And we do get glimpses inside his personality from his friend Badger. And it seems like this is a guy who's done things like this before. Like at one point, Badger mentions the fact that they had been friends since childhood. And he called him like a nightmare of a guy. Like you just get the sense that Patty is someone that knows how he comes off and uses that to his advantage. Like this is a very, very like calculated predator. This is a boy, like this is a wolf in sheep's clothing, like the very definition. There's a conversation to be had for friends who cover for their predatory friends. Like most people are assaulted by individuals they think they could trust or seemingly trust, and then they're covered by people who you thought had your back. The movie can be divided into 2 parts, before the assaults and after the assaults. So before the assaults, like everything seemed chill, everything seemed fine, like the vibes were vibing. Again, you got the sense that these girls were a bit in over their heads. Like these parties seemed to be a bit too intense, but they were making out okay. The day of the actual assaults, like it was a pretty intense day of partying. Like people were putting themselves through incredibly degrading activities in the name of fun, in the name of creating memories. But again, you get the sense that no one was actually having fun, and they were drinking to forget that they ever participated in such an event. So everything starts to go horribly wrong when Badger basically volunteers himself for the night's main event. And this poor kid did not know what he was getting himself into. And when I first watched the scene, I thought it was a bit absurd, but apparently it was taken from a real incident the director witnessed when she was partying on holiday. So this poor kid gets up on stage, he's stripped naked and he's assaulted, and the whole crowd is cheering him on, and he's trying to like maintain this masculine demeanor, but he's not in a position where he can say no or stop. I also think with men too, like there's this attitude that you can do whatever you want to them and they'll just like accept it. So as a man, how do you say no without being socially ostracized? Like, of course, what guy wouldn't want to be stripped naked in front of a stage? Like, I felt really bad for him. And so he just kind of waits for it to be over. And poor Tara is watching the whole thing and she's sick to her stomach. And so she decides to go home, and then she has the misfortune of bumping into Patty. What at first seems like an innocent invitation to the beach ends up just turning into a nightmare. And so nothing about Tara suggested that she wanted to be intimate that night. First, she was totally intoxicated, so she couldn't actually consent. And even if she, like, you want to have that conversation, like her body language, like she was basically trying to send as many signals to this boy that she was not interested, hoping that he would read between the lines, right? She's like, the water is cold, I don't really want to get sand everywhere. Again, she doesn't really care about the cold water. Like, she's willing to jump in, but she is not in the mood to do that with him. And he clearly clocks that she's uncomfortable, but he ignores it, right? He tries to just go around it. And so the way he creeps up on her, like, it happens quite like gradually. Like, first he picks her up and throws her in the water, then he slaps her bum, and then he gets tired of waiting, right? It's very clear she doesn't want him, but he decides, you know what, I've waited long enough. He pins her down and he assaults her, and everything in her face and her body, like there was just nothing, like it's very clear she didn't want it, and it's very clear that he could care less. Part of the shock was that she had no negative feelings towards him. Like, this was a guy that she thought she could be safe around. And so the fact that he crossed that line so quickly, like she did not know how to say no to him. Like, she tried like through every means she could, but it's like, how do you say no to someone without killing the vibe? The movie doesn't show us the assault like as it's happening. Instead, it cuts away, and it cuts away to Patty basically walking away with like a skip and a step, leaving Tara on the side of like just side of the road, not really knowing what to do next. And it almost felt like for a while that she was about to get assaulted again, but instead she tries to party it off, she tries to drink it off, and she ends up meeting with this other group of friends. And I'm glad they showed us this other group of friends. So this is an example of the type of friends that you need. So there's this one girl that sees that this, poor Tara seems lost. She doesn't seem okay. So she kind of takes it upon herself to look out for her. And if you look at the way this group is partying, like they're together, they kind of form a protective circle. Like everyone is looked out for. And this is like this seems like a strong group of friends. And I hate to say it, but Tara's group was not strong enough to protect her. And so she was at least able to have like a safe night out, even though like she kept, like you could tell where her head was. And that's what I liked about the movie. Like you can clearly see what she's thinking. Like she doesn't have to say anything for us to know that she's processing what just took place. So after the assault happens, we get flashbacks, kind of piecing everything together. And the reason for that is that like we're kind of remembering things as Tara is remembering them. So she goes back to her mates. She tries to smile it off, but it's very clear that she's traumatized. And I don't really understand her friends. Like I was very triggered. They don't really push her. They didn't really go looking for her. Like you didn't wonder where your friend was all night. You didn't call the police. Like I was like, and there's a reason for this. So they kind of push her, they interrogate her, and they could tell that something is wrong. And her one friend in particular, M, she can sense it, but she doesn't push her. And this other raggedy friend, Sky, she knows that something is wrong, but she kind of feeds off it. She seems to be getting off on her sorrow. And she takes this as an opportunity to pursue the man that Tara liked. And I thought it was interesting that none of her friends wondered why she slept with this guy. Like they had no connection. Like you don't push your friend to tell you the details. Like clearly, like whatever happened, like we need to know exactly what happened from point A to point Z. And I feel like the reason that her friends didn't really push is because they didn't want to ruin their own party or their own memories. Like they were having a great time. They were creating fun memories. And they didn't really want Tara's sort of bad time to ruin theirs. Like they didn't want the party to stop. Like it just felt like a very selfish decision. And so at this point, Tara is basically trying to survive the last few days. Like she becomes hyper aware of everyone around her. She's obviously uncomfortable. Like she doesn't know what to do with herself. And the one person that tries to understand her is Badger. And they actually have one of my favorite scenes in the movie before the assault, when he's in the bathroom throwing up and she's taking care of him. And when you're in these types of environments, you hope that people take care of you like that. But sadly, that's not always the case. And Badger, like he could see something's wrong. He could sense it, but he doesn't know how to ask. And so much of this movie is about having the conversation. Like Tara doesn't even know how to articulate what happened to her, but based on her body language, we know that something happened. And Badger doesn't know how to ask the question, right? Because these are not conversations that we're used to having. So he's studying her and he's trying to create a safe space, but he just doesn't know how to like articulate it for himself. So he's also kind of at a loss for words. And I was so, during this whole movie, I kept waiting for like the turning point, the change. Like I was waiting for a fight to break loose, either between Sky, like I was waiting for her butt to get dragged. I thought Patty and Badger would at some point go at it, but nothing like explodes in that way. Instead, a second assault takes place. And this second assault almost comes out of nowhere. And it just took me back because first it happens in plain sight. It happens around her, like while her friends are in the same area. So she's trying to go to sleep and Patty basically tries to sleep next to her. And it's very clear by the second assault that this is a predator and this is someone that knows what he's doing. And he basically forces himself on her, knowing clearly that she doesn't like it, knowing clearly that she's uncomfortable. And he's basically trying to mark his territory. And what's crazy is this woman is curled up in a ball and none of her friends ask her why she's curled up in a ball. No one decides that maybe we need to pause the party or stop the party. And I think when you're in these kinds of environments, especially like a party environment, like consent kind of gets thrown out the window. And so there's such a level of vulnerability where you do expect the people around you to take care of you, to check in on you. Like she's literally screaming with her body and people are coming in and out of the room. And I don't know why she would have to say something for someone to be like kind of read into what's happening. Like, is that, I just found that to be so jarring. Like, in terms of consent, I mean, we're so obsessed with the yes and the no, but there's like, someone doesn't have to say yes or no for you to like, if someone's curled up in a ball, like, it's clearly a no. And so I just didn't understand how her friends were coming in and out of the room, partying, infiltrating her space, and no one wonders why she's not really down. Like, her whole vibe changed, and especially from the start of the movie, like, she's so loud and she's so bubbly, and she's totally mute, right? Like, she's totally paralyzed by the assault. This guy took her voice away, and rather than try to figure out what's going on, her friends, like, the party never stopped. Patty in particular, like, he's the type of guy you have to scream, you have to push him off you, and Tara she didn't have the energy to do that, and I think she was hoping that the people around her would clock it, but they never did. At the end, she does get some of her voice back, but you just get the sense that, there's just so much more to unpack. So overall, I think this is a great conversation starter. And I think the point of this movie is to have the conversation out loud. Like, when we talk about assault, like, people are not comfortable discussing things in public. Like, this is between you and your therapist. And actually, during an interview, the director mentioned that she was assaulted on one of these trips. And when she tried to talk about it with other people, they shut her down. And it wasn't until years later that they were willing to speak with her, because I guess so much time has passed. And again, maybe they didn't want to ruin their own memories. Maybe they didn't want to feel guilty. Or maybe they just didn't know how to speak about it. Maybe they didn't know how to speak on it. And when we talk about consent, like, I'm very glad this took place in a party environment, because there's so many blurred lines. And I don't think someone should have to explicitly say yes or no for you to clock that it's a no, right? Like there should be some accountability in that area. And so when we don't speak things out loud, it kind of enables these situations to go under the radar, kind of normalize them, while it's like, well, what happens, in Greece stays in Greece, right? Like, people just kind of play it off, they laugh it off. But this is so common. People have their own stories that they've kind of pushed to the back of their heads because they don't really want to talk about it. You don't talk about things, you normalize them. And so you enable them to keep happening over and over again. So this is a very smart movie. It's a very, it'll have conversations going. So you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.